Every person hungers for a life of clarity, purpose, and impact, yet most find themselves scattered, exhausted, and endlessly distracted. The hours slip away, the days blur together, and in the end, little of true worth is created. But hidden within each of us is a God-given design, a rhythm placed deep in the brain and the body that holds the key to unlocking extraordinary focus and sustained productivity. When we look closely at how the human mind has been designed, it becomes clear that it is not meant to run endlessly like a machine, but rather to move in patterns, rhythms, and cycles that have been set into us by divine order and the very structure of creation. The body has its day and night, the heart has its beat, and the brain has its own rhythms that determine how we think, feel, and focus. One of the most powerful of these is the ultradian rhythm, a cycle of roughly 90 to 120 minutes, within which our mental energy rises, peaks, and then naturally begins to fall. To ignore this rhythm is to work against the very design that sustains us, but to understand and align with it is to step into a state of flow clarity and deep productivity that feels almost spiritual in its intensity. Think about the times in your own life when focus seemed effortless, when minutes felt like seconds, and your mind was locked onto a task with such intensity that nothing else mattered. This is not an accident. This is you tapping into the high point of that 90-minute cycle, where your brain is bathing in neurotransmitters that heighten attention, suppress distraction, and channel your energy like a laser beam. It is in this sacred window that the best work, the most meaningful prayers, the deepest reflections, and the most inspired creations take place. To honor this cycle is to honor the gift of focus itself, because it is not infinite, it is given in portions, in waves, and those who know how to ride those waves accomplish far more than those who fight against them. There is also wisdom in this design. If focus were constant, it would lose its power, and we would lose the sense of urgency that pushes us to make the most of the time we have. Just as hunger makes food sweeter and thirst makes water more precious, the rise and fall of these ultradian rhythms make focus itself something to be valued and treasured. When the mind is in that peak zone of 90 minutes, you can learn, create, and solve problems at a level that would take twice the time in a fatigued state. But when the cycle ends and the body demands rest, it is not weakness. It is wisdom reminding us to pause, breathe, and then return renewed for the next cycle. This knowledge is not just science, it is a reflection of a deeper truth. Everything in creation has its appointed time. The sun rises and sets, the tides flow and recede. Even the beating of your heart is a rhythm of contraction and release. Why then should we expect the brain to function without pause, without pattern, without cycles of rise and fall? To demand unbroken concentration is to rebel against the order that was set before us, but to embrace the 90-minute rhythm is to accept a divine gift that multiplies our strength by aligning it with nature itself. Consider also the moral and spiritual dimension of this rhythm. When you dedicate 90 minutes of true, undivided attention to something worthy, whether it is your work, your studies, your worship, or your service, you are honoring not only the potential of your own mind, but also the responsibility placed upon you to use your hours wisely. Distraction is not just a thief of productivity. It is a thief of purpose, stealing from you the chance to give your best. But within that 90-minute cycle, when the world falls away and your mind is wholly present, there is a purity of intention, a sincerity of effort that can turn ordinary labor into extraordinary devotion. It is easy to dismiss these cycles and say, I will push myself longer, I will keep going, I will ignore the signals of fatigue. But this arrogance comes at a cost. When we disregard the rhythm, we invite stress, exhaustion, and burnout. We dilute the sharpness of our attention, and instead of giving our best in 90 minutes, we give half our energy across hours of half-hearted effort. The wisdom is not in working endlessly, but in working rhythmically, in understanding that intensity followed by renewal is far more powerful than dull persistence. And when you think about it, isn't this how all greatness is built? The athlete trains in intervals, pushing hard, then resting, then pushing again. The warrior sharpens his sword before battle, not during it. The scholar studies in sessions, letting the mind absorb, then stepping back to allow it to consolidate. In every case, greatness is achieved not by ignoring cycles, but by mastering them. The 90-minute rhythm of the brain is no different. It is a weapon of focus, a tool of discipline, and a reminder that strength is multiplied by wisdom. So, when you sit down to do something important, recognize that you are entering into a sacred contract with your own mind. For the next 90 minutes, you owe it your full presence, your deepest attention, your undivided heart. In this time, distractions must fall silent because the clock is ticking on your most powerful state. And when the cycle ends, step away with humility, knowing that rest is not defeat, but preparation for the next rise. The cycle will return, the focus will rise again, and each time you honor it, you grow stronger, sharper, more aligned with the truth that your best work is not endless, It is rhythmic, intentional, and deeply human. The truth about focus is that it is not infinite, and it does not remain at its highest strength for long stretches of time. It rises like the flame of a candle, shines brightest, and then gradually begins to waver as fatigue sets in. This is why the first 60 to 90 minutes of any deep work session are so critical. Within that sacred window, your brain's chemistry is perfectly balanced to give you the sharpest attention, the fastest learning, and the deepest clarity. Beyond that, the very systems that carry you into focus begin to tire, and the light dims, no matter how hard you try to push against it. This is not failure, it is the natural curve of human design. The key is to recognize it and to use it wisely. During those 60 to 90 minutes, the mind is flooded with neurotransmitters that sharpen your ability to lock onto a task. The circuits responsible for concentration are alive and fully engaged, and your ability to resist distraction is at its strongest. This is why some of the greatest breakthroughs, the most inspired writing, the most powerful prayers, and the most meaningful problem solving happen when you step fully into that focused state. It is not about working for endless hours. It is about using this peak with complete sincerity and intensity. To waste this period on shallow tasks, on interruptions, on meaningless distractions, is to let the most powerful gift of your day slip through your fingers. And here lies the deeper wisdom. Life itself gives you these windows not to be taken lightly, but to remind you that quality outweighs quantity. 60 minutes of pure focus can accomplish what 6 hours of scattered attention cannot. 90 minutes of wholehearted effort can shift the direction of your life, your work, your studies, your faith. In that time, you are not just doing more, you are becoming more. You are showing yourself what your mind is capable of when it is free from the chains of distraction and fatigue. That power is always within you, but it shines brightest when honored within its rightful time. When the cycle begins to wane, when the mind starts to tire, many people make the mistake of forcing themselves forward, dragging their focus through exhaustion. But this does not produce excellence, it produces mediocrity. To ignore the natural peak of those 90 minutes is to spread your energy thin, to dilute what could have been sharp and potent into something dull and ineffective. The wise do not fight the fall of focus. They prepare for it, they plan around it, they give their best when their mind is strongest, and they rest when their mind is calling for renewal. In this way, they never lose their power because they move with rhythm, not against it. This is not just about productivity. It is about respect for the way you were created. The peak of focus is a sacred trust, and when you honor it, you begin to build a relationship with your own mind, a partnership in which you know when to push and when to pause. You stop measuring yourself by endless hours of activity and start measuring by depth, by quality, by intensity. And in that shift, you discover a strength that feels almost limitless because it is not wasted on shallow effort, but concentrated on what truly matters. When the body and mind begin to tire after that deep window of work, most people assume the only option is to keep forcing themselves forward. But the truth is far more powerful. A short, intentional break can completely reset your system, restoring attention, refueling energy, and renewing your capacity to dive back into focus. The human brain does not thrive on endless strain. It thrives on cycles of effort and recovery. Just as muscles grow stronger not during the lift but during the rest, attention sharpens not by grinding past fatigue, but by allowing dopamine, the very molecule of motivation and drive, to reset. Without this reset, focus becomes dull, like a blade used too long without sharpening. With it, you return with fresh clarity, ready to carve through distraction once again. A break, however, is not simply absence of work. It is a deliberate choice to give the brain what it needs to prepare for the next cycle. When you step away for even a few minutes, when you breathe deeply, walk, pray, reflect, or simply sit in silence, your nervous system shifts from the strain of effort into recovery mode. In that state, chemicals rebalance, stress levels decrease, and your mind consolidates what it has just absorbed. This is why stepping away after deep focus often brings flashes of insight, solutions that seemed hidden, and a sense of renewal. The pause is not wasted time. It is sacred time, the hidden half of productivity that makes the next wave of focus even stronger. Think of it like the rhythm of day and night. The sun shines with all its strength, but then it must set, and in the darkness the earth recovers, life restores itself, and energy is prepared for the next dawn. To reject the night is to lose the day. In the same way, to reject rest between cycles is to sabotage your next period of focus. Dopamine, that vital fuel of attention, is not endless. It rises with effort, falls with fatigue, and then restores during intentional rest. Those who honor this balance rise again sharper and more determined, while those who defy it collapse into exhaustion and distraction. This truth holds weight not only in science, but in wisdom traditions across history. Every discipline, every faith, every great teacher has spoken of the importance of pause, reflection, renewal. The human spirit was never meant to run endlessly without interruption. Even worship itself is structured with moments of standing, bowing, pausing, breathing. Every great work of art, every deep pursuit of knowledge, every sacred practice recognizes that strength comes in waves, not in unbroken lines. The intentional break is not weakness, it is strength cloaked in humility, the recognition that we are not machines but beings of cycles created to work in harmony with rise and fall. And when you make your break intentional, when you choose it instead of waiting for collapse, you take control of your mind's rhythm. You teach yourself discipline, showing that focus is not about endless strain, but about precise bursts of effort followed by purposeful renewal. You walk away at the right time, not the wrong time. You recharge on your terms, not under the weight of burnout. This transforms breaks from guilty distractions into strategic weapons, tools that multiply your output by sharpening your focus for the next round. Consider the alternative. Imagine working for hours without pause, your energy thinning, your attention scattering. You are present in body but absent in mind, dragging through tasks without depth, without fire. The hours pile up, but the progress is shallow. Now compare this with a rhythm of cycles, 90 minutes of deep, undivided focus followed by a short, deliberate break to restore. The result is not only more work done, but work done with excellence, work that carries weight, meaning, and power. The difference is the break, the willingness to honor the design of your brain instead of fighting against it. There is also a spiritual beauty in this. To step away from work is to acknowledge that your worth is not in constant output, but in balance, in wisdom, in using your time as it was meant to be used. A break can be a prayer, a breath of gratitude, a walk under the sky, a sip of water with awareness. It reminds you that you are not defined by relentless activity, but by intention, by how deeply present you are in the work you do and the rest you allow. In this way, the break is not an interruption of focus. It is part of focus itself, the unseen half that gives power to the seen half. So when you feel your attention slipping, when your energy starts to wane, do not see it as failure, but as the signal that it is time to reset. Step away, not into endless distraction, but into purposeful rest. Let the brain breathe, let dopamine restore, let the mind reorganize what it has gathered. Then, when you return, you will not crawl back into your work. You will rise back into it with the full force of renewed clarity. This is how cycles build strength, not through resistance, but through rhythm, not by endless pushing, but by honoring the wisdom of pause, the sacred reset that makes focus possible again. When the cycle of focus comes to its natural end, the most powerful thing you can do is not to force your mind into more work, but to give it the kind of rest that truly restores. And not all rest is the same. Scrolling endlessly on a screen, drowning yourself in shallow noise, or numbing yourself with distractions does not renew the mind. It drains it further. The kind of rest that prepares you for the next wave of deep focus is deliberate, sacred, and often simple. It is giving your eyes, your body, and your heart a chance to breathe. Visual and physical rest are not luxuries. They are necessities woven into the very design of our nervous system. Without them, your focus weakens. With them, it returns sharper, stronger, and more resilient. The eyes are not just windows to the world. They are extensions of the brain itself. Every moment you spend locked into a narrow visual field, staring at screens, documents, or tasks, you are taxing the circuits of attention and straining the pathways that control focus. Over time, the weight of this strain pulls you into fatigue, even if your mind still wants to continue. But when you step away, when you look into the distance, when you let your gaze widen to the horizon or to the open sky, something remarkable happens. The brain shifts out of narrow strain into a broader state of relaxation. Your nervous system calms, your heart rate slows, your stress chemicals decrease, and the very circuits that fuel focus begin to recharge. In that simple act of looking outward, you are preparing inwardly for the next cycle of deep concentration. The body, too, plays its part in this rhythm. Sitting endlessly, locked in stillness, is not a badge of discipline. It is a slow drain of vitality. The human body was created to move, to breathe, to stretch, to rise and fall in rhythm with the demands of the day. When you stand, walk, or stretch between cycles, you are not wasting time, you are restoring energy. Movement resets blood flow, carries oxygen to the brain, releases tension from the muscles, and awakens the systems that support sharp thinking. Even a few minutes of gentle motion can change the way the next 90 minutes unfold. This is not weakness. This is wisdom, the recognition that the body and brain are partners in the work of focus, each requiring care, each deserving honor. And here lies the deeper truth. Rest is not the opposite of work, but its companion. Just as night follows day and prayer follows labor, rest follows focus. The two are inseparable, and the power of one depends on the faithfulness of the other. To deny rest is to deny the design of creation, to rebel against the order that makes true strength possible. But to embrace it, to step back with humility, to allow your eyes to wander, your body to breathe, your spirit to reflect, is to multiply the power of your effort. For in that rest, the brain consolidates memory, strengthens learning, and prepares the mind to rise again. Think of how nature itself moves. The ocean does not crash endlessly against the shore. It rises and retreats in waves. The heart does not contract without release. It beats in a rhythm of push and pause. Even the breath you are taking now is a cycle of inhaling and exhaling, work and rest, effort and renewal. Why then should your mind be any different? To push without pause is to break the very rhythm that sustains life. To rest between cycles is to honor the same law that governs the sea, the stars, and the beating of your heart. It is to live in harmony with the truth that strength is born in rhythm, not in resistance. There is also something spiritual in this pause. To look up from your work and lift your gaze to the sky is to remember your smallness, your dependence, your connection to something greater than yourself. To breathe deeply and allow your body to loosen is to remember that your worth is not tied to constant output, but to presence, to balance, to the wisdom of knowing when to stop and when to continue. In those moments of visual and physical rest, you are not abandoning focus, you are sanctifying it, preparing it, purifying it for the next cycle. You are saying, I will not burn out in endless strain. I will rise again in rhythm as I was created to do. Those who ignore this truth may boast of long hours of endless grind of pushing through fatigue, but their work is shallow, scattered, weakened by exhaustion. Those who honor rest between cycles, who close their eyes, stretch their limbs, breathe deeply, and lift their gaze, they return to their work renewed, their minds sharp, their focus pure. The difference is clear and it is profound. One burns themselves into mediocrity, the other rises into excellence simply by respecting the gift of rest. So when you finish a cycle of deep focus, do not see rest as wasted time. Step outside, let your eyes drink the horizon, let your body move with freedom, let your spirit lift in gratitude, give your nervous system the renewal it was built to receive. Then, when you return, you will not drag yourself into focus. You will step into it with power, clarity, and presence. In this rhythm of focus and rest, effort and renewal lies the secret to sustained greatness, a truth as ancient as creation itself and as immediate as the breath in your lungs. The measure of greatness has never been in the hours a person spends chained to their work, but in the depth and purity of the focus they bring to it. A single hour of undivided attention, where the heart and mind are united in purpose, outweighs an entire day of scattered effort. This truth is often ignored in a world obsessed with business, where people confuse constant motion with true progress. But the reality is clear: what transforms lives, what builds legacies, what leaves impact is not the total quantity of time, but the quality of focus poured into that time. Think of the difference between a candle and a laser. Both are light, but one disperses in all directions, weak and unfocused, while the other concentrates its energy into a single point powerful enough to cut through steel. Your attention works the same way. Spread thin, it glows but does not transform. Focus deeply, even for a short while, it becomes unstoppable. The hours you log are not your strength. The strength lies in how much of yourself you pour into each moment, how completely you dedicate your mind to the task before you. There is a kind of worship in this level of focus. When you give your full attention to something meaningful, you are honoring the very breath of life you have been given. You are saying this moment matters. This task is worthy. This time will not be wasted. In that state, work becomes more than work. It becomes devotion. It becomes service. It becomes an offering of the best within you. To scatter your focus across endless distractions is to give fragments of yourself to everything and the fullness of yourself to nothing. But to gather your mind, to narrow it, to concentrate it with intention, is to turn ordinary minutes into sacred ground where transformation happens. The temptation to measure worth by hours is strong, but it is deceptive. Many boast of long nights, endless effort, constant grinding. Yet what comes of it? Shallow output, diluted ideas, tired minds. Compare this with the one who works in cycles, who gives 90 minutes of pure, unbroken focus, who enters with intensity and leaves when the cycle has been honored. Their progress is greater, their results deeper, their spirit lighter. It is not because they worked more, but because they worked with quality, with presence, with intention. The truth is simple but profound. The depth of your focus is the true multiplier of your time. Even in matters of faith and spirit, this principle shines. A moment of sincere prayer, free from wandering thoughts, carries more weight than hours of mechanical recitation. A brief act of kindness done with the whole heart is more powerful than countless gestures done without presence. The quality of intention transforms action into something eternal, something beyond mere time. So it is with focus when you enter a task with full sincerity. Even for a short period, the impact outlives the minutes spent. This is why chasing endless hours without guarding the quality of your focus is dangerous. It wears down the body, it drains the mind, and it blinds the spirit. You may feel busy, but you are empty. The clock ticks, the day ends, yet little of worth has been created. But if you choose instead to guard your focus as a sacred fire, feeding it with intention, protecting it from distraction, and using it in cycles of depth, then every hour becomes heavy with meaning, every minute carries weight, and your work begins to shape not just your life, but the lives of those around you. There is also humility in this truth. To admit that quality outweighs quantity is to recognize that you are not limitless, that your strength has boundaries, that your focus is precious and finite. But within those boundaries lies immense power if you choose to channel it. It is like water flowing through a narrow channel, limited in volume, but unstoppable in force. When you align with this truth, you stop chasing the illusion of endless productivity and start living in the reality of powerful focus. You stop asking, how many hours did I spend? And start asking, how fully was I present in the time I had? And when you live by this principle, you find that your days begin to change. You no longer measure success by exhaustion, but by excellence. You no longer take pride in endless business, but in meaningful accomplishment. You no longer scatter yourself across shallow tasks, but pour yourself deeply into what matters most. The world may still boast of quantity, but you will carry the quiet strength of quality, knowing that 1 hour of true focus can outshine 100 hours of noise. So, let your work, your study, your worship, your service be measured not by length, but by depth. Guard your focus, protect it, treat it as sacred. When you sit to work, be fully there. When you pray, be wholly present. When you serve, give completely. For in that state, time bends, distractions fade, and your mind, aligned with purpose, creates at a level that hours of half-hearted effort could never reach. The quality of focus is the true key to greatness, and once you taste it, you will never again mistake business for power. Consistency is the secret that turns fleeting moments of focus into lasting transformation. A single cycle of deep concentration is powerful, yes, but when those cycles are repeated day after day, week after week, something extraordinary begins to happen inside the brain and the soul. The circuits of attention, like muscles, grow stronger with use. The pathways of discipline deepen with repetition. And what once felt like effort begins to feel like nature itself. This is the essence of neuroplasticity, the ability of the mind to reshape itself in response to what you practice consistently. Each time you enter into a focus cycle, you are carving a deeper channel in your brain, training it to resist distraction, to love depth, to thrive in intensity. Over time, this practice builds not just productivity, but character, not just efficiency, but identity. Think of how habits are formed. No one becomes disciplined in a single day, nor does anyone lose discipline in a single lapse. It is the repetition that shapes destiny. A small act performed daily becomes a habit practiced long enough becomes a way of life. In the same way, when you commit to cycles of focused work with consistency, you are not merely achieving tasks, you are rewiring yourself into someone who lives with clarity and purpose. The mind begins to expect focus, to crave it, to settle into it more quickly. What felt difficult at first becomes natural. The cycles of 90 minutes that once required great effort become your new normal, and from that foundation, your capacity only grows stronger. This is why greatness is never built on a single burst of energy, but on steady repetition. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It grows with daily nourishment, with sunlight, with rain, with time. The same is true of your mind. One great session of focus may bear fruit, but a lifetime of consistent sessions builds a forest of wisdom, resilience, and mastery. It is in the daily practice, the repeated honoring of cycles, that the mind becomes unshakable and the spirit becomes steadfast. There is also a spiritual lesson here. Faith is not proven by a single act, but by persistence, by showing up again and again with sincerity. Prayer gains its power not from its length, but from its consistency. Service is meaningful not because it is done once, but because it becomes a pattern of living. The same truth applies to focus when you return to it faithfully. Day after day, you are honoring the gift of your mind, showing gratitude for the capacity to think, create, and serve with clarity. In this way, consistency is not just a tool for productivity. It is an act of devotion, a way of aligning your life with discipline and purpose. But consistency requires humility. Many chase quick results, desiring transformation without patience, seeking greatness without repetition. They burn brightly for a moment and then collapse into darkness because they mistook intensity for consistency. True strength is built not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet, steady commitment to return each day, to honor the rhythm, to give focus even when it feels small. This humility, this faith in repetition is what produces mastery. It is the difference between those who achieve briefly and those who endure, between those who rise once and those who rise again and again. And as you build this consistency, something profound happens. Productivity becomes more than just a measure of output. It becomes part of who you are. You no longer need to force yourself into focus. You are drawn to it, carried into it by the grooves you have carved in your own brain. Distraction loses its grip because you have trained your mind to value depth over noise. Fatigue becomes less overwhelming because you have built resilience through rhythm. Every cycle strengthens the next, every day compounds upon the last, and soon the person you have become is far stronger, far more disciplined, far more capable than the one who first began. This is the miracle of consistency. It multiplies small efforts into monumental change. Just as drops of water falling steadily can carve valleys into stone, so too can repeated cycles of focus reshape your brain, your character, your destiny. What once felt impossible becomes effortless. What once seemed out of reach becomes natural. And all of it comes not from occasional brilliance, but from steady, faithful commitment. So when you think about focus, do not merely ask yourself how much you can do in one session. Ask yourself how faithfully you can return to it tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Do not measure your progress by today's output alone, but by the pattern you are building, the habit you are carving, the identity you are shaping. For in the end, it is not the single act of focus that transforms you. It is the life built on consistent cycles of attention, effort, and renewal. That life carries not just productivity but power, not just efficiency but meaning, not just success but greatness.